July 1st, 2019. We're officially, when is the official day of summer? First day.
Like June 22nd, 21st, 23rd, somewhere in there.
Okay, so I
Last
don't know
week.
what I'm talking about. It's been hot as hell around here anyway.
Yeah.
It's the Deeper Dive presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, where you're not going up against guys playing 150 lineups, where they have the lowest management fees in the business, and sometimes zero. Actually, every day they have a 0% management fee, meaning they take nothing off of the entries. All of the prize pool is the 100% of the entries that go into the contest. Check that out, but get into it early in the morning each day, or it'll fill up. But hey, if you haven't signed up at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, use the sign-up code AWESEMO when you do. A very easy way to do it. Go to awesemo.com. It's all free content I'm about to tell you to go to. And go to the Hitter Spotlight article. You'll see the link right at the top of the article. Use that, and then use the sign-up code AWESEMO. You'll get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points when you sign up. It's money. Can be used on the site. Good as cash to play, to win, and to withdraw money. That's Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. So, well, I'm Dave Locker, and that's Adam Scher, and the man, Awesemo himself, Alex Baker. But we got to start with some big news that just got passed down on the Twitterverse. Adam, Tyler Skaggs just died this morning, which is just brutal news for a 27-year-old pitcher that, like, I hate to be like, oh, the guy that said, oh, he had good stuff. You know, he's a good pitcher, but he was a good pitcher. And not that it even matters at this rate. It's just, it's like, it's heartbreaking to see something like that when we talk about these guys every single day. We don't know them, but we talk about them every single day like we do know them and know everything about them, at least on the field. Just horrible news.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just talented people. Like, you know, you mentioned, you know, him having good stuff, and it doesn't matter, but at the same time, it kind of does. Like, the reason we know these people are because they're in the top, you know, 0.001%
Sure.
of, you know, talented people at what they do. And so, in addition to just the fact that it's a person who was 27 years old, I mean, it's obviously really sad.
Yeah, Alex, it's like this stuff kind of punches you in the gut when Jose Fernandez and Oscar Tavares, so many of them, it feels like recently, but they've canceled the game between the Rangers and the Angels. We only have 4 of them now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a reality check where, I mean, it's like these guys we're playing with on our teams are real guys, and all this stuff happens to them. Like, most of it, like, their lives, we only see them on the field, but they have all this other stuff going on. It's always tragic when someone has something really bad happen to them, especially if they die. So I'm sure that whole team is really grieving, and can understand why they would cancel a game over that.
Yep, they are human beings. Sometimes we forget that. But this is a daily fantasy show, and we're going to do what we always do and talk daily fantasy sports because that's what we do. So we'll jump into it. It's just terrible news, but we've got 4 games. It would have been 5 games. The Angels-Rangers game has been canceled. And Alex, like, it again, just talking strictly from an analytical standpoint, when you're looking at top ownership on this slate, the Rangers were projected to be the highest owned stack, one of the highest owned stacks with the highest top stack probability. The Angels were projected to be the highest owned stack overall on DraftKings, at least, and on FanDuel, second highest on Yahoo. So both of these teams, even though I wasn't particularly high on the Angels today, were set to be really chalky with a lot of upside in their respective spots.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to force us to really break down how that affects the slate, because 4 games, I mean, it's a lot different than having 2 more teams to choose from. The ownership is going to be a lot more concentrated, and one thing I found with smaller slates, essentially the smaller the slate, the more ownership is going to matter, because you start to have guys that are just owned like 50% or higher, and at that point, doing like a stack against that player or doing a fade, those could be really high leverage opportunities.
Yeah, especially going into this slate. San Diego Padres were going to be that team for me. Or when earlier today, Samardzija was projected at like 45% ownership. Let's jump into it. Adam, I mean, we're not going a full hour here. There's no way we could, but we'll spend as much time on each game as possible and make sure that we try and touch on every nuanced aspect of this slate since it's only 4 games. Pittsburgh and Chicago, Trevor Williams, Adbert Alzolay, who in 32 AAA innings, man, 32% Ks, 16% swinging strike rate. He's done a solid job since being called up to the major league level. The problem is Joe Madden said that he hit a wall last time and he was only at 87 pitches. They say they're cognizant or they're aware of his pitch count, which makes, puts a little wrinkle into this. And then on the other side, Williams has been okay this season. He's been significantly better against righties. And with a few guys either out or designated for assignment, this is a Chicago team that, well, they do have Caratini and not Contreras. Usually they'd have only 3 lefties. They have 4 today, but it's not like Caratini's all that imposing. So there's your pitcher preview. How are we breaking them down?
Yeah, I mean, I still think Alzolay is interesting just because of the lack of pitching options on this slate. It's not a great matchup against Pittsburgh. They don't strike out a lot. But it is a good pitcher's park. They're an above-average offense. It doesn't strike out a lot. But he does have really good strikeout stuff. I mean, you're talking about a guy with like a 34% strikeout percentage at AAA, a 5.5% walk percentage. So really, really good numbers in that regard. And his price tag's still really low. So even if you're going to get, 80, 85 pitches from him on this slate with only 4 games and with really, really questionable pitching, I don't think that's the end of the world.
All right. Neither do I. Alex, what are your thoughts on the 2 pitchers here? Because now we're down to 4 pitchers. Granted, the pitching in the Angels-Rangers game was not going to be popular whatsoever. But Trevor Williams' ownership projection has come up significantly throughout the day, or has stayed high, I should say. 34% on DraftKings, 40% on Yahoo, and even over there on FanDuel, he's 21%. Meanwhile, Adbert Alzolay isn't exactly projected to get a ton of ownership, but it has come up throughout the day, 18% on DraftKings, and on pretty much just on DraftKings, he's getting some because of that price point. Is there anybody you like here at PNC Park?
Yeah, I mean, on today's slate, you really have to consider every single player. Like, in this game, analyzing these 2 pitchers, I don't think it's particularly close. Trevor Williams, I mean, his strikeout numbers on the year are 19%. The Cubs have a higher team total. They strike out about the same, which is less than average. So I just don't really project a lot of fantasy value for Trevor Williams. So I find it perplexing that his ownership is projected to be higher than Adbert Alzolay. Adbert Alzolay is a lights-out strikeout pitcher in AAA, and he's shown so far like 26% Ks. I mean, that's about what I would expect from those numbers in AAA, and he's continued it for his first 2 appearances in the majors. As you mentioned, he doesn't go deep in games. He pitched 87 pitches last time, and got pulled. So this isn't a guy you really can count on for a lot of innings, but he'll get you strikeouts. And he's a cheaper price point than Trevor Williams on DraftKings and Yahoo, and just a little bit more expensive on FanDuel. The thing is, like, all the pitchers on today's slate, I have projected between the highest projection I have for a guy on FanDuel is 26 or 25.
Wow.
Logan Allen, and I think that Adbert Alzolay. Just a little preview into my projections here, but I have him projected for 23.6, so that's only 2 points you have to make up. And you could easily see him getting lucky with the pitch count. That's something that happens a lot. Just some batters just hit it into the field in the first couple pitches, or there aren't as many walks, and he could definitely go deeper than you expect. And at 3% projected ownership compared to 21 for Trevor Williams, I think people are arbitrarily fading Adbert today.
I agree with you. I wrote him up in the deep dive. just based on being cheap. And look, his ownership compared to most of these other guys is low on such a small slate. I assume we'll get an update on ownership shortly and see where everything falls. But yeah, it's an interesting spot. Adam, what about bats here? Because you are still getting, pretty high run totals for the Chicago Cubs. At least last I looked, it was around 5. I think it still is at 5, right? So they are up there. And on the other side, Pittsburgh's at 4.6. There really aren't a lot of low totals on this slate whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think with the Texas game being off the slate, that has the biggest impact on bats here because it is a pitcher's park. And like this morning, I had a lot of interest in the Angels. I had some interest in the Rangers, but obviously both of those teams are not there. So now you're talking about a slate that has 3 pitcher's parks or neutral parks and then Cincinnati. So it's not as much of an issue going to this game. Trevor Williams has struggled with lefties in particular. He's only struck out 13.5%, not giving up much power to them, but the Cubs kind of, supply their own power. So guys like Schwarber and Rizzo are good plays. He has given up more power to righties. So you look at guys like Bryant and Baez. And then on the other side, the Pirates are pretty expensive. That's my biggest issue with them. Alzolay, I think, is a really good strikeout pitcher. I expect that to continue. But anytime you're talking about a starter that's not likely to go deep into the game and that is only making his 3rd major league appearance, there is some upside. But it just is a matter of, are the Pirates really worth paying for in this park? And outside of ownership considerations, I don't really see it.
Yeah. Do you think so, Alex, as far as hitting? I agree with Adam that, some of the lefties for the Cubs. And if you're just looking for, well, let's see, what is their ownership? Because I think the Cubs are still going to be pretty popular. I guess it's a small slate, so it's all relative, but
yeah, actually, we just got an ownership update, so that'll be nice to kind of refresh the numbers and see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, take it away, unless you want to look at it, and I'll ramble for a second.
No, it's okay. I can handle some rambling duties myself. Kyle Schwarber always seems to be underpriced on DraftKings, and today is no exception. He's the highest owned Cub. He has the positive platoon split. He's batting first. There's not a lot to dislike here. 24% ISO on the year. The conditions for batting should be good in this game. That's why the over-under is 10, despite the fact that we have 2 pitchers who are not gas cans by any means. So I think I definitely see a lot of offensive potential for each team. As far as individual players, Schwarber on DraftKings and FanDuel. Chris Bryant, he was not named a starter in the All-Star game, but he was named a reserve, so I guess that means he should be ranked in between 19th and 40th in the league as far as hitters. Adam, I know that you might have a rebuttal to that.
He wasn't even listening. He wasn't. I guarantee you he didn't hear a word you said right there.
We were talking about Chris Bryant and where he ranks.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trolling
between 19 and 46 among hitters.
Wow. Wow. Okay, playing possum on me.
So I just thought I'd throw that in there to stir up some controversy here because we're going to need to fill that time. But today I think he's a good play. I mean, second in the order is a good spot. The price tag is reasonable. I like him more on DraftKings and Yahoo as far as price, but the first 4 Cubs all have excellent power, so I think they all make nice parts of a stack. Albert Almora is a good value on DraftKings and Yahoo, batting 6. Jason Hayward is probably the guy that wouldn't make my stack if I had to pick one because while his power has been up this year, overall, not a great fantasy player, doesn't steal a lot of bases. And I don't expect his ISO of 20 this year to stay at that level. So he's not a great value on any of the sites based on my evaluation. And then we have the bottom of the order is really priced well on Yahoo with Caratini and Russell being 7. So I think pretty much everyone except Hayward I have a lot of interest in.
Okay. Let's get to this next game here. Some really interesting aspects of this one. I'll tell you that much. Baltimore and Tampa Bay. You've got Tom Eshelman on the mound making his debut, his major league debut. Pitched, actually, Adam might know this. It looks like he was with the Phillies at AAA this year and the Orioles. Either way, Steamer has him projected at 5.6 Ks per 9. His strand rate has been ridiculous, which just shows you that either he's been lucky or he's really, really good out of the stretch, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
He's really good at getting balls hit at people.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be the way to put it. But anyway, you have that, and then you've got Brandon McKay in the lineup, the pitcher, two-way player who has made one appearance this season, one start, went 6 scoreless with 3 Ks against the Rangers, and now, Adam, we've got him batting 8th. So Shohei Ohtani light in Tampa Bay Rays lineup today.
Yeah, except for, unfortunately, none of the DFS sites, I guess, could have known that he was a two-way player, even though he has always been a two-way player, and he's not in the player pool as a hitter.
Yep. At least DraftKings stated it at the top of the page, but
yeah, it's just dumb though. Like, he was a two-way player at Louisville. He was drafted as a two-way player. Like, this isn't a surprise to anybody.
Maybe there were some implications that he wasn't going to play as a two-way guy up here. I have no idea.
No, he demanded when he got drafted that he wasn't signing unless he was a two-way guy. He's been a two-way guy his entire minor league career.
Right. Oh yeah, I know he has. I just didn't know if there were any stipulations coming up here. But go ahead.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, it sucks that like you can't get to him at a cheap price tag before people realize what's going on. But it is a good spot for Tampa Bay. Tom Eshelman was acquired by the Orioles from the Phillies for, I think, like international bonus slot money. He was actually a second-round pick by the Astros in 2015, which that the assistant GM for the Astros then is the Orioles GM now. So he saw a chance to get what he thinks is some young talent and bring him over to the Orioles.
That's good. I saw what you did there.
Yeah, it's probably better young talent than the Orioles already had, so it's fine. But not a guy that I would be shying away from. I mean, if you go back and look at his minor league numbers, sub 20% strikeout percentage at AA in 2017, AAA in 2017, AAA in 2018, AA this year, AAA this year. You know, he's not a strikeout guy. And you're getting, some pretty inexpensive Tampa Bay hitters. I mentioned on the show this morning with Jake that Austin Meadows is only $13 on Yahoo, and that just really stands out. But even 4,600 on DraftKings is fine. Brandon Lau at 4,300 is good. Obviously, El Garcia at 4,200. The only thing really missing from this lineup is Tommy Pham, but really, really affordable facing a pitcher who doesn't really give much reason to believe that he's any good.
Right. I'm 100% with you there. We had to wait for a while to see who was going to be on the mound, and we got our answer. And it's not something that I'm terribly afraid of. Alex, Eshelman he hasn't allowed many runs, but man, you come up here with those type of contact numbers and some of that luck that we've seen from a BABIP and strand rate standpoint. This could be a long day for him. What do you make of Eshelman here in the matchup for the Tampa Bay Rays?
So, Eshelman is not available on any of the sites, right?
Correct.
Okay. So actually, I mean, if he was like on FanDuel, I might consider it, but not a great pitcher. The matchup versus Tampa Bay, they have a 5.8 run total, so they're projected to be doing pretty well today. And I think Tampa Bay is probably the chalk of the day. Just really high value numbers on every site. So Eshelman I have projected for about 17% Ks. This lineup does strike out, so if he was, I guess it's not really worth talking about since he's not in the player pool. But on the other side, Ryan Yarbrough following Ryan Stanek is like one of my top pitchers of the day, which is not saying a lot. But along with Adbert, I think that you gotta consider him. He's a little bit less valuable on FanDuel because he can't get the quality start, but that's only worth 4 points. So I think that given there are only 7 pitching options, aside from Ryan Stanek, which I'm eliminating, I think that you could play him on FanDuel even just because he has decent potential tonight. The Orioles, I have projected for a 23% strikeout rate as a team, which is about on par with the league, but they have below average ability to get
Everything.
on.
Everything.
Yeah, below average everything. Thanks for saving me some breath here.
I got you.
One stat where they are above average is steals, because they got two guys that steal bases in VR and Broxton. So I have them projected to get 50% more steals than an average team tonight. But it's just 1.8% as opposed to 1.2%, so it's not really going to do much for them.
Look, I talked about Yarbrough at length in today's article, which, by the way, is free on awesemo.com today. Every day we put a free article out there that would usually be behind paywall. Check the deep dive out. Adam and I switch off each day. You can check it out at awesemo.com. And if you want to sign up, use the code DEEPERDIVE, all one word, to get 50% off your first month. Not only all of the in-depth comprehensive articles, but all of the tools that Alex Baker uses, Awesemo uses himself every day, the stack tool, the ownership tool, the projections, not just for baseball, but for all of the sports where we offer DFS content. The Fantasy Cruncher add-on, lineup builder, Data Central. There's so much there, and we welcome you to check it out. Check the free stuff out. And if you want to get 50% off your first month, just use Deeper Dive as the sign-up code when you do. But yeah, Adam, I talked about Yarbrough today, and I went kind of into depth with just how he's been used. So he's made 8 appearances since he was recalled from AAA. 4 of them were starts, 4 of them were out of the bullpen. And he's gone in the starts, 99 pitches, 92, 110, and 90. In the relief appearances, he went 53 and 3 2/3 innings, 42 and 3 innings, 91, that was a 6-inning game, and then 42 and 3. So he hasn't gone 4 innings in 3 of the 4. But interestingly enough, he's averaging 15.2 DraftKings points in all of those relief appearances. So it's not like Yarbrough hasn't been able to at least put up some numbers. He doesn't need to go as Alex mentioned, he can't get the quality start on FanDuel, but he doesn't need to go 5 to even get the win on DraftKings. And it's up against a pretty bad Orioles team with a pitcher that was averaging 5 strikeouts per 9 at the AAA level. So, look, the lowest total on the slate, a 3.3 run total. Yarbrough is a monster 250 money line favorite. I don't think it's a crazy idea whatsoever on a slate like this to give him some consideration and hope maybe he does go 5, but even if he goes 4, it might not kill you.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much where I was at this morning. You know, you mentioned the numbers between starting and relieving, but also important to keep in mind that most recent outing where he threw 42 pitches, he wasn't supposed to pitch that day. It was an 18-inning game against Minnesota, and they just needed him to
Oh, that
pitch.
was the 18-inning game?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was like 3 or 4 days ago, which basically just ends up being his throw day, I assume. Like, I assume that they just, instead of having to throw a bullpen, they just had him throw 3 innings. So I don't know that it has an effect on what would happen today. But even if it does have an effect and you get 65, 70 pitches from Ryan Yarbrough at 6,500 against the Orioles, I can live with that on the slate where pitching is awful. And the upside is that it was just a throw day, and it's like he threw his bullpen and nobody pays attention to. And he goes out and throws 90 pitches in relief. So it's either a good spot or a great spot, depending on, how many pitches he's actually allowed to throw. But at that price tag, either way, I really like Yarbrough.
Yeah, and let's be fair. He's still super risky, but Tyler Mahle's facing 5 lefties in the top 7 of the lineup. We already talked about Williams. Adbert Alzolay is a solid option, but he's definitely not rock solid. He's not somebody that you're running out there with supreme confidence. And then who else was I thinking? Logan Allen, and then Jeff Samardzija. Samardzija, we know who he is. He's a veteran righty that has been below average at best this season. So if there was ever a day where I'm like, okay, I'll take a chance on another guy that's going to be. Did we get ownership on him yet, Alex? I know we didn't have it earlier in the day.
I don't think he's on the ownership. No.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some issues with the line relievers, but we'll see if we can get that for the next update.
All right. And when we get that, we'll let you know. But Adam, what are you thinking about hitters here with this Tampa Bay team against Eshelman?
So I think Tampa's in a really good spot. The thing that will really matter for me is that on these 4-game slates, ownership becomes even more of a consideration. I think that it's pretty obvious that Tampa's in like the best spot as far as facing a pitcher who's probably not very good and having an offense that has plenty of power. But this game is in Tampa Bay. It's at least conceivable that they hit a bunch of really hard fly balls to get caught on the warning track and they only score 3 or 4 runs. If they're really popular, then obviously I think that you can get to other teams. But if they were to be, similarly owned to almost anyone else on the slate, I would think that they're a really good play.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this game, Alex, before we move on?
I think that Baltimore, if you're thinking that it's going to be sneaky to stack them up and go for contrarian stack, the lowest projected team, I'd probably avoid that tonight because their ownership is actually looking like it's higher than their percentage chance of being the top stack, and none of the players are really good values on any site other than Yahoo. So I don't really see going to them for one-offs really. But on the other side, Tampa Bay, just as I mentioned, like super high values across the board. So I'm expecting them to be really high owned. But they also have a 20% chance nearly being the top stack of the night. So I wouldn't begrudge anyone for going there, but definitely want to try to think of a way how you can be sneaky while still having the chalk stack.
All right. Yeah, there is a team, we'll get to them, that I think is probably the best. Let me see what they moved to. Yeah, probably the best contrarian stack, at least in my opinion. We'll get to them. Their ownership seems to have come up a little bit, but nothing crazy. This Texas game changed a lot. Alex, we'll stay with you. Cincinnati and Milwaukee. Tyler Mahle and Adrian Hauser. I mean, Mahle's just so much worse against lefties, and he's very good against righties. But, man, his numbers against lefties this year haven't just been like below average. They've been really bad. You're talking about 2.86 home runs per night, a 281 ISO, and a 5.23 xFIP. These are rough numbers. And, the likes of Grandal and Yelich and Moustakas, and I'll even throw Eric Dames in there. They're no real slouches when it comes to power, especially at a hitter-friendly park. Tyler Mahle is going to be popular. Which side of this are you on, if not both?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really standing out to me is that Tyler Mahle's home run per fly ball is 20%. So I think he's been getting a little unlucky this year. I guess the general theory is that number is more about the batters than the pitcher. So
and how high their ground ball rate is.
Well, it only takes into account the fly balls. So 20% have gone yard as far as all the fly balls that have been allowed. But yeah, he does have a 44% ground ball rate, which is a little bit lower than some other pitchers. So you definitely could get some home runs today. And Milwaukee is a team with a lot of power. I think that Yasmani Grandal is clearly your cash catcher because it's a weak position. He's leading off. The price tag isn't great, but it's hard to get that, make up that projection in other spots because the gap between him and the other catchers is going to be large. And I think he makes a great one-off as well just because of that. Overall, I don't think the Brewers are a great value just because the price tags are quite high. And they aren't going to be contrarian either, so not my favorite stack. But it is interesting that Mahle is projected to be high owned and the Brewers are projected to be high owned. The Brewers' strikeout rate is about league average with their current lineup, and Mahle has decent numbers, 24%. And I have them just kind of lumped together with everyone else as far as the potential tonight. So I think as far as pitching, I'm just going to choose like the least owned option probably.
Okay. What I meant, by the way, I meant the higher your fly ball rate, usually the lower your home run per fly ball rate, just based on how many of them go into the air.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like if you have a 10% fly ball rate, if like, you give up 3 home runs, but 19.7 does seem very high for a guy with a 32% fly ball rate for sure. I think he's been unlucky in that respect, but Adam, he's also never been good against lefties.
Right. I think he's been unlucky for sure. If you look at his ISO to left-handed hitters this year, it's a 282. His expected ISO is 239. 239 is high. It's still a lot better than 282.
Right.
His PCRA, which is a stat that is similar to XFIP, except for it accounts for your actual batted ball data instead of your a league average. His PCRA is at 3.68, which is about 2/3 of a run lower than his ERA. I think he's pretty clearly been an unlucky pitcher this year. I think that he's a good pitcher. He actually has the second highest strikeout or third highest strikeout percentage. No, sorry. He has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate, excluding relievers, Ryan Stanek and Adrian Hauser. Hauser is starting, but he's a reliever most of the season. So there's certainly merit for Tyler Mahle. He also has a low 5.8% walk percentage. But as you guys mentioned, he does struggle more with lefties than righties, and that's been the case his entire career. You're going to get 3 lefties to start the game, 3 very good lefties with Grandal, Yelich, and Moustakas. Eric Dames hitting 5th isn't an easy out, and then Ben Gamble hitting 7th is whatever, but he's still a lefty. So it's really going to come down to me for what his final ownership projection is. Like right now, we have him projected high, like Alex said, and I wouldn't want to get to him in this spot at that ownership. But if in the final update, people are, we think people are going to be scared off, and there's just more ownership going to Jeff Samardzija or whoever else, then I would be interested just based on talent.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's just, man, that 18% K rate against lefties. It's not to say he can't go out there and put up numbers, but I actually think Travis Shaw being DFA'd hurts Tyler Mahle just because even though he's a lefty, he had been so bad this year with a third of his plate appearances being strikeouts. It would have at least put another K-heavy bat into the lineup.
I'm not sure that hurt him because Keston Hiura is also a K-heavy bat, and he's right-handed.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But he's probably at current form, he is a better hitter than Travis Shaw.
Right. Shaw was just, oh my God, he was terrible. Well, you know what? Let's do this. Alex, do you have any other insight as far as these hitters go? Because you've got Hauser out there. I don't know how many pitches you guys expect him to throw. I know last time he threw 60 something, but he only went 2 innings, I think. Yeah, 2 innings. He threw 64 pitches. Not exactly efficient. So what are your thoughts overall here? Any teams you really like? Any individual bats you really like?
So Hauser, before last game, I saw a report that said that he's not like an opener. He's going to be in the rotation going forward. In that game, he gave up a bunch of runs in the first 2 innings, and his pitch count got super high, so it kind of got away from him. But I don't expect him to go like 100 or anything, but I expect him to be a full starter. He is a good strikeout pitcher. The matchup is decent for strikeouts, but obviously Cincinnati is projected for 5.3 runs, so not getting super excited about it. Cincinnati, much better price than Milwaukee, about 1K less on average on DraftKings and on Yahoo, about $5 less on average, and also on FanDuel. So I think given that the difference in run total is only 0.2, Cincinnati is far the better team as far as projection. It looks like the ownership is going to be spread out pretty evenly throughout the lineup, so it's going to be hard to be really contrarian with it. But I think that if you can figure out a clever lineup construction, I think you can definitely stack them up.
Okay, what about you, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so my guess is that Hauser goes like 70 to 80 pitches, and it's a decent spot at that price tag, just because he does have strikeout stuff. The Reds are pretty mediocre. A lot as far as the Reds offense goes, it'll depend on ownership for me, like entirely, because I don't think it's a great spot. I think Hauser is good. I think that bullpen games in general are pretty unappealing. So, if Hauser were to only go 3 innings, it's not like it makes it more appealing for the Reds. But if people are going to go to other teams, then I'm interested.
Okay. One more game to go, fellas. Again, anyone that's just tuning in that didn't catch the very beginning of the show, Tyler Skaggs passed away this morning. Terrible news. And the Rangers and Angels have postponed this game at Globe Life Park. So we only have 4 games. We get to our last game here, San Diego and San Francisco. Adam, Logan Allen, Jeff Samardzija. My favorite, if there is any low-owned stack, 6.9% on Padres stacks to me just seems too low given their upside, especially when San Francisco's at 8.4. I get they're cheap, but many of these other teams being very popular, San Diego going almost entirely overlooked, which much of that has to do with the fact that, oh, wow, look at that. So the updated ownership shot them up a lot. That's unfortunate with no Texas and Angels game. Let me see where they're coming in at.
You want me to just throw out there, our new ownership has Ryan Yarbrough in it, so
Awesome.
that will, just going back to that, it looks like he's 26% on DraftKings in our latest run and 9% on FanDuel, 21 on Yahoo.
Awesome. Alex, or Adam, I will say, though, there is still some meat left on the bone because you look at Chicago, top stack probability and ownership, it's pretty much identical. Chicago actually looks to be in a pretty good spot there. But then Cincinnati seemingly having more ownership than their top stack probability. And same with Milwaukee. But now San Diego creeps up more than they were. They were at 5.5% earlier in the day. I really liked that against Shark.
Yeah, I think that him getting out of San Francisco is a big deal, and people might kind of overlook that because everyone thinks of San Diego as like this as a pitcher's park, but it's actually pretty neutral, especially for right-handed power. And regardless, it's a huge drop for a pitcher coming out of San Francisco. Shark has been pretty mediocre for a while now.
Terrible on the road too.
Right. He's someone that has certainly benefited from pitching in San Francisco. Even this year, he's been much worse outside of San Francisco. Against righties on the road, he's allowed 1.64 home runs per 9 compared to 0.93 at home. His strikeout percentage has dropped like 8 percentage points. His xFIP goes up about a run and a half. And what really stands out is that, we know the Padres are a flawed offense. They strike out a lot, but they have a ton of power top to bottom. And I don't think we have a lineup yet. It looks like Machado, Renfroe, and Mejia are all questionable. So the lineup could end up being kind of ugly, I guess. But regardless, Franmil Reyes really stands out at his price tag because he has monstrous power and really shouldn't be as cheap as he is. If Renfroe and Machado are in the lineup, they're really good plays. Mejia or Hedges are, I think, good tournament pivots to a Yasmani Grandal, who I agree, with Alex is like the cash catcher. He's a good tournament catcher, but you do get a high power bat for cheap with either Mejia or Hedges. So I'm with you. I think San Diego is a good tournament play.
Yeah, I don't like them as much as I did, but I still think they're interesting. Just, relative to the rest of the teams, they're still not that popular. I would have liked them more. Alex, let's talk about pitching for a second here. Logan Allen and Jeff Samardzija. Let me pull up the ownership updates just so we can get Shark here, because I know Logan Allen was popping as the highest. Yeah, 40% on DraftKings. Really not a surprise. On FanDuel, Logan Allen's at 19%. He's coming in as your 4th highest owned pitcher. And then on Yahoo, where he's very cheap, you're getting Logan Allen at 50%. Meanwhile, Samardzija is at 32% on DraftKings, your 2nd highest pitcher alongside Tyler Mahle. On FanDuel, Samardzija's 22%. And then over there on Yahoo, to round this out, you've got him at 40%. So basically the 2 most popular pitchers on this slate.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and point out that the ownership of every pitcher is pretty high tonight. The lowest.
Oh, yeah.
So on DraftKings, I'm seeing 4 pitchers in the 20s, 2 in the 30s, and 1 that's 40, Logan Allen. So it's like, this is like becoming a really tough slate to get an edge with ownership, if I'm being honest. Logan Allen, I'm not very optimistic about his chances tonight. but he is one of the highest projected players on the slate just by a hair. The reason why he's shown an ability to go pretty deep in games in his first 2 starts. He's had decent strikeouts at 20%. San Francisco is one of the worst lineups as far as run production in the league, but they don't strike out a ton. So there are reasons to be optimistic, but I'm not projecting big strikeouts here. It's mostly the run prevention that makes him the best pitcher of the night as far as projection. Kind of tied with Ryan Yarbrough on DraftKings and Yahoo. So it's kind of surprising on the other side. We got Samardzija, also projected to be super popular. On FanDuel, he's 6,200, which is one of the lower prices of the slate. The projection is within a point of the highest projected pitchers of the slate, so I can see there's a lot of value there. But Samardzija, 20% strikeouts on the year. The lineup for San Diego is just about average for strikeouts. So they have a 4.8 team total, which is pretty decent. So I'm not very enthusiastic about any of the pitchers on the slate, to be honest. So it's pretty much a throw a dart kind of slate, I think.
Yeah, it really feels like it's pretty amazing how much one game can change the entire foundation of the slate, Adam. But just looking at DraftKings specifically, there is one pitcher projected for less than 20% ownership, and that would be the Tampa Bay Rays opener. So, I mean, seriously, Hauser, Williams, Alzolay, Yarbrough, Samardzija, Molly, and Allen. They're at 20, 21, 24, 26, 32, 32, 40. Like Alex said, there's literally everyone's getting ownership. Allen, Molly, and Samardzija are at the top, but there's nobody that you're going to play and be like, oh, man, this is the leverage spot. Everyone's off of him. No one knows he exists tonight.
Yeah, I was kind of laughing while Alex talked because everything he was saying was what I was thinking, like as I was thinking it.
For sure.
And yeah, I mean that's what it is. Like that Angels game not playing, it takes Mike Minor out as the pivot to Logan Allen as like top projected guy.
Yep.
It takes out the best cheap high upside bats in guys like Justin Upton, Andrelton Simmons, pretty much the entire Angels team outside of Trout.
As Drupal Cabrera was 3,500 too.
Yeah. It takes out like I wasn't really that high on Texas, but it takes out a really high owned stack. Or not high owned, just high upside. So yeah, it just makes it really weird. So like Logan Allen, I think is still, like Alex said, he's the highest projected pitcher in terms of raw points, but it's not by a very wide margin. And there's not a lot of there's not a high probability of breaking the plate unless it's because every other pitcher just sucks. There's on his own merits, it's pretty unlikely he's that guy. He's probably going to throw around 90 pitches. He's facing a team that doesn't strike out a lot, but also fails to produce. So the most likely outcome is that he's going to give you around 6 innings, and he's going to not give up a lot of runs, and he's going to score like 18 to 20 fantasy points, which is completely mediocre at his salary, but it's also very likely to be one of the highest scores on the slate. So if you're rostering Allen, just make sure you're contrarian with your bats somewhere, and he's not someone that I think you need to be forcing into your lineups.
And Samardzija
would be it's kind of the same thing. Like it's a high strikeout matchup. I would say that he's probably I mean all the pitchers are pretty similarly owned, like you said, but I feel better about leveraging against him than against most. Like if you're going against Allen, that forces you to take Giants bats that have no power. If you're going against Samardzija, you're getting Padres bats that at least do have a ton of power, like we talked about. So I'd be more willing to be like underweight on Samardzija and get more of like a high strikeout guy in Alzolay, and whoever else I end up getting than Samardzija, but he's clearly not a bad play either because he's facing the Padres.
Right. No, and look, that's precisely what I was talking about earlier, why the Padres were so interesting when they had like the second lowest projected ownership on the slate. Because Samardzija is very prone to just unraveling. now it throws a wrench into the works a little bit just on ownership. Alex, I went in reverse order with you guys. I went hitters first to Adam, pitchers first to you. Where are you at on hitters in this one?
So I think the Padres, there's potential, but the prices are quite high on all three sites. I'm more interested in the Giants because Logan Allen is going to be so chalky and they're just super, super cheap. I mean, there's not a lot you can do with the extra money, so maybe it's not even worth going to them. But I'm seeing great values for Donovan Solano leading off. Buster Posey is underpriced every day, just batting cleanup every day that he's in the lineup. We haven't gotten the lineup yet, so I mean, he might not be in it. That's one caveat. Evan Longoria, if he's in the lineup, is super, super cheap. Not guys you're excited about, but it's a 4-game slate, 8 teams, so I have the Giants as being about a 5 to 6% chance of being the top stack of the night. And it looks like the value is good, so those are some reasons to go to it as a leverage stack where you're just kind of hoping that Allen busts, and it makes it a lot easier to cash and win a tournament.
All right. Well, boys, that's 4 games. We actually didn't do quite bad with the time. Made sure to get everything in that we could. Let's hit on our top stacks here. I guess the answer could be, everyone but San Francisco and Baltimore. But I will ask you anyway. Alex, who are your top stacks?
So I think on DraftKings, the Cubs. On FanDuel, I like Pittsburgh as a really sneaky option. It's like the anti-optimizer play. And on Yahoo, I think Pittsburgh also maybe kind of sneaky.
Okay. Adam.
Yeah, I'll go Padres and Cubs.
Yeah. Padres and I'm going to go with the Brewers here. Obviously, I'm not doing anything sneaky by any stretch, but really when you look at like top stack probability and ownership, they're almost all of them, maybe outside of Tampa. Most of them are almost identical outside of, I guess, Tampa and the Cubs, but like Pittsburgh, San Diego, San Francisco has an awful ratio there. So does Baltimore. But yeah, if you're using the top stack tool, which you can find on awesemo.com, use the promo code Deeper Dive, one word, to get 50% off your first month, and check out all the same tools Alex uses every day to make his own winning lineups. You'll see that it's a very odd slate when it comes to the ownership on these stacks. All right, boys. Well, let me ask you, the viewers, if you enjoy the show, we'd really appreciate it. Hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It helps us out a lot. Helps us further along what we're doing, and is great support for us over at awesemo.com, and to help grow our YouTube channel as well, so we can continue to give you guys free content. Subscribe and hit the notification bell as well, so you always know when we're putting new content out next. Alex, Adam, any last words? I'll go to Alex first here because he usually does have something to say at the end of a show.
Well, I solicited some questions on the chat here, and one of the more interesting questions is whether you should stack or not on a 4-game slate. And I think the way I approach it is that maybe you don't need to stack as much. Like you can go, instead of going 2 full stacks, maybe you have one player that's a one-off, or maybe you have a 4-stack on FanDuel or 5-stack on Yahoo instead of the full. Sorry, on FanDuel, like four of one team, and then you get all one-offs as the rest of your lineup. Like that could be in play. But there is a tremendous advantage to stacking, and it becomes really tricky in baseball to come up with a lineup that's not stacked, that has potential that's not also high owned, because when you're making a cash lineup, it's easy to kind of just put in the best plays, but it's really hard to come up with a really unique strategy that also overcomes that loss you're getting as far as correlation. So I still am going to stack. I don't think 4 games is the smallest, really. I mean, I play all the 2 and 3 game slates too, and I stack on those, so that's how I'm approaching it.
All right. And Adam, any strategy ideas tonight for a short game or short abbreviated slate?
Yeah, like I will say, like I've talked to Alex about that, about stacking strategy in general, and I agree with what he just said. I do think this slate in particular is kind of unique, or at least interesting, in that the ownership, like Alex had said, is pretty sharp, at least where we have it projected right now. It doesn't seem like there's like a huge edge to any of these teams. So I guess I'd be more inclined, if I'm someone that is looking for a reason not to stack, it would be on a slate like this where it's a short slate and where there's no stacks that are like jumping out as being underowned and still, having high probability of paying off. But in general, yeah, stacking really does just give you a, higher upside, like you said.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in and wish you the best of luck today. Only 4 games. But of course, we will be back with you tomorrow on the Deeper Dive, which is presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Awesemo, AWESEMO is the sign-up code there to get $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Stick around on the channel after the show. It's Monday, July 1st. And Josh and Jake are going to take you up to lock on Live Before Lock. They will be with you right after we sign off, which is right now. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive.